as often, something irks me, and in this particular instance, I'm going to read you something. On or before May 31st, 2023, the Intersegmental Committee of the Academic Senates of the University of California, Cal State University, and California Community Colleges shall establish a singular lower division general educational pathway that meets the academic requirements necessary for transfer admission to both Cal States and UCs. Furthermore, the bill would require, upon the fall term of 2025-26 academic year, to be the only lower general educational pathway commencing, and it's supposed to be sufficient academic preparation for transferring to both segments and to not lengthen the time to degree and or include more units than those required. This is specifically reading from AB 928 that has been passed on October 7th, if I remember correctly. The significance of this is as follows. The rationale of why they're trying to implement a singular pathway is presented in 4 places, and I will go over them specifically as they are highlighted in the section 1. Transfer students are more often Black and Latinx as well as first generation, which highlights transfer as an important way to close equity gaps. I'm assuming that what they're talking about is socioeconomic equity and the lack thereof, especially when we look at the higher levels of the profession, specifically law and medicine. When we look at the law, we see that Blacks do not comprise more than 5% of the field. Hispanics, Latinx community, 5% across the board. When we look at the Black male doctors, specifically in the last 80 years, there has been not an increase, but rather a decrease of the percentages of Black male doctors. In 1940, in the United States, we had 2.8% Black doctors. In 2018, roughly 80 years after, we have 2.7. Now, next rationale of why we're doing this singular pathway is now presented through the report in September 2020 by the Public Policy Institute of California. Says that there is a large gap between number of students who desire to transfer and eventually do. The statistics presented is 19% transfer within 4 years, whereas 28% transfer within 6 years. Overall, only 40% eventually do, which means more than 60% of students who enter into the community college who want to transfer to the university do not. Now next, the same Public Policy Institute of California also found that there is an equity gap specifically within Latinx students, who are representative of 51% of students who declare a degree of transfer goal, and they represent 35% of those who do, and when we look at our Black student population, they're 7 and 5 respectively. What does that mean? Well, it means that we are talking about individuals who are unfortunately and massively are underserved in being able to transfer to the academic institutions. And the last one, there is a clear need to further streamline and make transfer process easier for students to navigate, especially during these challenging and unprecedented times. English is not my first language, but when I hear singular and only, it feels that it's no longer a navigation, but rather a clear direction. Now, this rationale, along with what I've read previously about creation of this pathway, leads me to very specific 3 questions. Question number 1, does singular path alongside to not lengthen the time to degree or include more units than those required mean 1, that students cannot change it, or 2, if they change it, they will no longer get the support from the institution and or state? The reason I'm asking this is because we know that the vast majority of students do not know the path that they desire upon entering into the academia. Secondarily, about 80% of the students in the United States end up changing their major at least once. According to the National Center of Educational Statistics, the claim is that on average, college students change it at least 3 times before they're finished with their educational path. How does this serve them? Question number 2 is, can there be a singular path to approach of solving the issues of inequity in the educational gap? As an educator, I have encountered students who need, and I underline, need variety of different help and assistances in order to be able to overcome those specific equity gaps that are present. And the answer is 60 prescribed units and go, and that's going to successfully accomplish it. I do not understand how that's going to achieve the purpose. And the question number 3, how do you sidestep the necessity of additional fundamental co-curricular activities from various disciplines that are designed and are meant to enhance, enlighten, and clarify the path itself? Look, higher education has been and continues to be a place of critical thought, which means it needs to give the students the opportunity to be able to swim, to cook, to do pottery, to engage in forensics and get into the baseball and do soccer. The reason I'm talking about this is that for many of our students who enter into the community colleges, they have been denied to, for any number of reasons, access to those different varieties and pathways. And if we limit it and narrow it down to singular pathway, we're going to cut off an educational path that is going to be available to other people, but it's not going to be available to our students. And I don't understand how the Assembly Bill 928 answers these questions. Please help me answer them.